In this episode, you'll discover why healing from so-called incurable illnesses is not only possible, but documented, and what the survivors who defied terminal diagnoses all have in common. You've been told it's incurable, but here at Renegade Remission, we believe in rewriting the story. If you're facing a terminal or chronic illness, you are not alone. I'm Eleni Welch, certified nutritionist, and each week I share healing strategies and remission stories to help you take control of your health, feel better, and rediscover hope. Welcome back to Renegade Remission. By the end of our time together today, you'll understand the science behind unexpected recoveries, the common threads that run through verified remission stories across cancer, autoimmune disease, ALS, dementia, and more. And if you stay with me through to the end, I'll share several simple, concrete actions you can take today to begin aligning your body with the same healing pathways that those who achieve remission seem to tap into. Because people who heal aren't outliers or flukes, they're humans, just like you and me, and if they can do it, you can do it. So let's dive in. If you've recently been diagnosed with a terminal or chronic illness, or someone you love has, you've probably had a moment where you've asked yourself quietly, do people ever actually heal from this? Has someone ever come back from something like my diagnosis? And here's what I want to tell you right from the beginning. The medical literature is full of people who have recovered from diseases that were supposed to be irreversible, full of cases, not just one person one time, but full. And almost none of these stories make it into mainstream conversation, and almost none of them are shared with patients because medicine is built on averages, not exceptions. And people who defy the odds make the rigid boundaries of science feel uncertain. But you are not an average, you are a unique person. And today I want to show you what's possible when we step away from statistics and look at real human stories instead. The first is a study by Azam et al. Called Spontaneous Regression of Colorectal Cancer from the Annals of Medicine and Surgery in 2022. This is a medically verified case that surprised an entire oncology team, not because the diagnosis was unusual, but because the outcome was. The patient was a man in his early 60s who had been experiencing abdominal discomfort that gradually worsened. Like many people who have spent their lives powering through pain, he didn't immediately seek help. It wasn't until the discomfort became impossible to ignore that he finally went in for evaluation. Tests revealed colorectal cancer and not an early form. The disease had already spread to his lungs, confirmed by biopsy. It was metastatic, advanced, and deeply concerning. His doctors prepared to begin treatment as any oncologist would, but before therapy started, the patient chose to pause. He wasn't refusing care or seeking out extreme alternatives, but because real life can become complicated after receiving news like this, he needed time. Time to understand the diagnosis, time to talk with his family, time to decide how he wanted to move forward. And during that pause, nothing medically significant was done. He didn't have chemotherapy or radiation. He didn't have immunotherapy, no targeted drugs, just ordinary life happening in the space between appointments. When he returned for follow-up scans, his team expected to see progression of the cancer. That would have been quote-unquote normal for untreated metastatic colorectal cancer, but instead the radiologist noticed something unexpected. The lesions in his lungs were smaller. It wasn't dramatically different, but they were measurably reduced. The medical team double-checked the images, compared them side by side with earlier scans, and confirmed the findings. The tumors had begun to regress without any systemic treatment. Over the next scan cycle, the pattern continued, and the lesions continued shrinking on their own. This was not a misdiagnosis. The pathology had been confirmed. It was not a case of partial treatment response because he had not yet received any treatment. It was a rare but well-documented phenomenon known as spontaneous regression. The authors of the case report described several possible biological explanations. One theory is that the immune system may have been triggered. Sometimes infections, inflammation, or even the biopsy process can wake up immune cells in a way that causes them to recognize and attack tumor tissue. Another possibility is that the tumor's own microenvironment changed. There could be shifts in blood supply, oxygenation, or metabolic stress that can make cancer cells more vulnerable. Some research proposed that certain genetic characteristics of a tumor may make it unstable and prone to collapse, but I don't want to get lost in the weeds of the why for this, because while none of these explanations can fully capture the mystery, the big picture is that they illustrate that the human body is far more dynamic than prognosis charts can ever reflect. By the end of the documented timeline, the patient's metastatic lesions had shrunk significantly, all without systemic therapy. The physicians published the case precisely because it challenged assumptions about what is and is not possible in late-stage disease. This was a thoroughly evaluated, medically verified case in a peer-reviewed PubMed indexed journal. What this story shows and what the authors emphasize is that biology is not perfectly predictable. And while spontaneous regression may be considered rare, it is real. And for anyone facing a frightening diagnosis, stories like this remind us that the body can sometimes behave in ways we don't yet fully understand. Prognosis is never the full story. We also have to keep in mind that many remission cases are unreported. So it may seem like stories like this don't happen very often, but it's more that they're not reported on very often. It happens more frequently than you would know. The body has healing pathways that aren't obvious, but they are real. They are powerful, and they are available to you. It may look different for you. It may unfold differently. Your journey is your own. But stories like this remind us that even in situations where the medical world has run out of answers, that doesn't mean the body has. The first thing we want to keep in mind is that spontaneous remission is real and much larger than most people think. What I'll share next aren't anecdotes, although I believe that those are just as powerful, but these are peer-reviewed studies, so let's break them down. The first source is O'Regan and Hirschberg's Spontaneous Remission, an annotated bibliography. This is a 700-page scientific document. It's a very heavy book, I own it, that compiles more than 3,500 medically verified remission cases across cancer, autoimmune disease, heart disease, MS, and more. To be included in this book, each case needed medical verification of the original disease, medical verification of the remission, credible documentation of the transition. And the cases were not mild things. We're talking about stage 4 cancers disappearing, autoimmune diseases reversing, neurological diseases stabilizing, and advanced life-threatening infections resolving without explanation. There were a lot of requirements for these cases to be included. So think of all the ones that might not have met every criteria but are just as powerful that don't end up in that book, and that book still had 3,500 cases. And they tell us one thing clearly, which is that your body has healing pathways we do not fully understand yet. You are not a lost cause, and no diagnosis cancels the potential inside your own body and biology. The second thing that's important to understand is that prognosis is inaccurate because outliers distort averages. Research has consistently found that physicians are not able to predict survival accurately. Sometimes they overestimate a person's time left, and other times they underestimate it. Researchers in one study in the Journal of Supportive Oncology in 2008 analyzed how accurate physicians were when they were predicting survival for patients with terminal diseases, and they found that doctors were only accurate 20 to 30% of the time. This is a guess based on averages and people who are not you. So if you're given a prognosis that seems pretty daunting, just remember that that does not have to be your future. The third thing we need to keep in mind is that the immune system can absolutely wake up again. Emerging cancer research shows that tumors can sometimes become visible to the immune system, even when they previously weren't. This can happen through changes in inflammation, the tumor's metabolic environment, or even the microbiome of the gut. Studies in Nature and Science have shown that when these conditions shift, immune cells may suddenly recognize cancer cells they previously couldn't quote-unquote see. Chronic stress and high cortisol are known to suppress immune function, and reducing stress is known to improve immune activity. Emotional and physiological states do influence the strength and coordination of the immune system. This is huge. It means that your immune system is not a static force. It can re-engage, recalibrate, and switch from ignoring a tumor to attacking it. And lifestyle changes can influence that shift. The fourth thing we want to keep in mind is that the nervous system acts like a remote control for healing. Over the past 2 decades, researchers have discovered that the vagus nerve, the long nerve connecting your brainstem to your heart, lungs, and digestive organs, plays a major role in how your body regulates inflammation. The pathway, known as the cholinergic anti-inflammatory reflex, was first identified by Dr. Kevin Tracy in a landmark 2002 PNAS study. In that research, stimulating the vagus nerve reduced inflammatory cytokines dramatically in animal models, proving that the nervous system can directly influence immune activity. More recent research from 2021 shows that vagus nerve stimulation is being explored in humans for conditions like Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and even depression, all because of its ability to calm inflammatory pathways. Now, while research gets really fancy in studying the vagus nerve and uses things like implanted electrical stimulators to stimulate it, there are everyday activities such as slow breathing, meditation, humming, singing, or prayer that don't necessarily create an effect that's as easy to study and document as something like an implanted electrical stimulator, but they do activate the vagus nerve in gentle, measurable ways. These practices improve heart rate variability, reduce stress hormones, and support more balanced immune responses over time. When you can activate the vagus nerve, even in small ways, you can shift your body out of survival mode and into a state where healing is more biologically possible. The fifth thing to keep in mind is that epigenetic changes can turn healing genes back on. In a landmark 2008 study published in Lancet Oncology, Dean Ornish and his colleagues examined how intensive lifestyle changes, things like including a whole food, plant-forward diet, daily movement, stress reduction, meditation, and group support, affected men with low-risk prostate cancer. After just 3 months, the researchers found major shifts in gene expression. 48 genes involved in tumor suppression and DNA repair were upregulated, while more than 450 genes involved in inflammation, oxidative stress, and tumor progression were downregulated. In a separate follow-up study, the same research group also found a significant increase in telomerase activity, the enzyme that helps maintain chromosome length and cellular longevity, suggesting that lifestyle changes may influence not just gene expression, but cellular aging as well. So your genes are not fixed. They can turn on and off, and your lifestyle, even small changes, can flip them in your favor. Individuals who heal and achieve unexpected remission are not random. They're people who purposefully and maybe sometimes even accidentally tapped into healing pathways the body already has. This doesn't mean you have to do everything perfectly. It means your body is capable of far more than your diagnosis might suggest. Having hope is not the same as being in denial. The hope we talk about here is fixed and rooted in what has already been shown to be possible with real human stories. Here are steps you can begin today that are not overwhelming. The first is to choose one habit to shift this week. Maybe it's reducing your sugar intake. Maybe it's walking outside. Maybe it's breath work. Pick one thing to start that feels easy and doable for you without massively overhauling your daily schedule. The second thing you can do is add one anti-inflammatory meal, just one per day. A smoothie in the morning, soup at lunch, roasted vegetables, anything whole, colorful, and unprocessed. The third thing you can do is practice 5 minutes of vagus nerve activation. Things like humming or singing, slow diaphragmatic breathing, focusing on long exhales, a cold splash of water on your face, or 1 minute of cold water at the end of your shower, gentle yoga, tai chi, or qigong. All of these things are vagal stimulators. The fourth thing you can do is watch or read a survivor story. Listen to past episodes of this podcast, find things on YouTube, read stories in the Spontaneous Remission book, or look at radical remission stories. I share on this podcast many survivor stories. In our last episode, which included an interview with Ryan Sternagel, whose young child overcame stage 4 cancer, is particularly inspiring. If you're looking for a place to start to build hope based in reality and science, this podcast is a good place. Your nervous system responds to hope and possibility, and it can rewire your sense of what is achievable to read and hear other people's stories. Your prognosis is not a prophecy, it's a statistic, and the statistics don't define you. Yes, people do heal from incurable illnesses. Not everyone. not always, but enough that it is worth believing that more is possible for you too. In our next episode, we'll discuss the 7 common patterns across people who triumph over terminal diagnoses. So stay tuned, and until then, go be renegades.